Hello everyone, I'm back for another update. I am now currently on my trail that I created next to Potts Creek. Background. I took a 30-mile plus bike ride yesterday from from Lexington, Virginia to Lowmore. And did it in about 4.5 hours as I prepare for my long distance hike and perhaps bike ride. I applied for my retirement benefits. I will be getting my first checks supposedly by July. So it's less than 4 months away. And there is some rain on the way later this afternoon. Already some flowers blooming here in this bed. And we do have a brief shot of cooler air coming in tomorrow and Sunday. But as I've stated numerous times, it's not going to last. By next week, it's going to be back up to nearly up in the 60s again. Sun's going to be out. As I continue my discussion on global warming, well, they call it climate change, and the idea is really getting sold very well because so many people in the U.S. this winter and last have received very little snowfall and a lot of warm temperatures. And you go on Yahoo News and you see article after article blaming everything on climate change, even a whale. Gray whale has been spotted off the coast of Massachusetts. They normally only are in the Pacific. And they're even blaming that on global warming, saying that it came through the Northwest Passage to get into the Atlantic. And yeah, admittedly, there have been some years recently where the Arctic ice has been reduced enough to where they could have made it across. Especially 2007 and 2012, there were some very low ice years, those 2 years, where perhaps some whales could have made it through there. But is there a long-term decrease in Arctic ice right now? Has it been decreasing over the last 15 years, since 2007? No, it has not been. It has leveled off and has even come back up to some degree. Not as much as pre-2007, although lately the ice in the Arctic has been higher even than what we saw in 2006. However, now they're talking about Antarctica, the southern hemisphere, having record low sea ice in the last 2 summers. However, what they don't talk about is as recent as 2014, the ice was at record high levels. So they don't ever mention that. They only mention the last 2 years. And it appears that the trend is that the ice is starting to return to more normal levels, or showing hints of it. So that's You go on Google News, that's all you see lately are articles, and people are getting sold on this left and right because of the last two winters being so warm in the eastern two-thirds of the U.S. that many people are getting sold onto the idea that global warming and climate change, same thing, has taken hold of the earth, caused by man. That temperatures are just going to keep skyrocketing from this point on, that summer is going to be brutally hot this year. We're going to have a huge bumper crop of hurricanes due to record warm ocean temperatures. Just article after article I've been seeing lately. And this is my own self-created trail through this. This is all actually part of the Jefferson National Forest behind my house. But I saw a comparison of February. They claim that this was the warmest February for the continental U.S. on record, and I saw a comparison between this February 2024 and 1991, and you could clearly see the difference. 1991 was a genuine global warming was going on that month, and every part of the U.S. had warmer than average temperatures, significantly warmer from coast to coast. This February, that was not the case. The warmth was only in the eastern two-thirds of the U.S. in February, centered in Minnesota, but everywhere from the Rockies westward actually had below normal temperatures in February, unlike 1991, which was warm throughout. And that is hints that manipulation's going on, because for so much of this winter we've had a trough over the eastern Pacific. All the cold air has been pouring over the eastern Pacific. This is feeding the storms that have been hitting California lately. So all that cold air is remaining out in the eastern Pacific. It's not really coming eastward. The trough is remaining in the eastern Pacific, thus popping up the ridge over the eastern two-thirds of the U.S., keeping the ridge in place, keeping the warm weather going. And this is going to continue till, as I said in the last video, my estimation around May 1st, when it's pretty much too warm for any snowfall anywhere. They're going to switch to trying to create an MJO, which will favor hurricane development and landfall in the U.S. at that point, around May 1st. And that will last until December 1st. Then we get to December 1st, it will go back to trying to switch to mild weather for the eastern U.S., where most of the people live, that they want to sell this climate change, global warming to. And yeah, of course, it is easy to believe that if you're not educated on weather and climate, it's easy to believe that global warming has taken hold of the earth and it's being caused by man. We keep hearing that it's the warmest month on record, and of course, if the populated areas get warmth, they can always just fill in the oceans with above average temperatures, and presto, you get record warmth globally. But as I've stated before, it looks like the sun's trying to break through the overcast for now. For example, we take a look at Canada right now. Most of the populated areas of Canada, especially the eastern part of Canada, are getting relatively mild weather. But you go up north from the population centers, up to Hudson's Bay, up to above about 58, 59th parallel. Here's a beaver pond, beaver dam. Yeah, you get up above that parallel, and we find extremely cold temperatures dominating northern Canada, which nobody's talking about. Talk persistent cold over Newfoundland, getting buried by snowstorms, and that's a clue as to what's going on over the North Atlantic right now. See, because if you got a ridge over the eastern U.S., 2/3, you're going to have a trough over the North Atlantic, and Newfoundland's going to get clipped by that trough, so they're going to be cold. Great Britain also has gotten caught in a couple of these troughs lately, but most of the cold weather has been over Mongolia. Again, another cold outbreak coming across from Siberia, Kamchatka, into the North Pacific again. All that Siberian air being siphoned out into the Pacific instead of across the North Pole into the U.S. And this is all by design. You look at the MJO, you could see, anyone can see that knows about it. All the convection is centered in the phase 4, 5, and 6 zones of the MJO. All three of them are warm phases for the U.S. as a whole. We're in a solar max, so it's easier to keep. The jet stream doesn't have as many waves in it as solar minimums. It gets stronger, less waves in it, so it's easier to keep a ridge over the entire U.S. when the jet stream is flowing more, faster. There's less waviness, there's less dips, less, so they could keep the dips much more easily over the ocean during a solar max than during a solar minimum. And this is going to last, like I say, the sun is starting to come back down in activity. The flurry of X flares is over for now. Sunspot count has dropped down to more around 100 again. As I said in my last video, I feel that we've reached the max, and from here on out it's going to be a decline overall. I mean, we may get a few more bumps in activity next year. Cosmic ray count is pretty stable around -5. It has come up a bit in the last few days to more like -4. But yeah, again, we're at the max. Both hemispheres of the sun have fired up simultaneously this time around. So, once we go back into minimum conditions, my prediction is we're going to get probably a couple of more winters that are mild, and people are really going to start believing this climate change. But it's going to reach a point where ocean temperatures are going to crash. Once they take enough heat out of the water in these regions, the ocean temperatures in these regions, if they're not already starting to, are going to crash. And things are going to flip in the other direction at some point in the future. And my prediction is in the 2030s, we're going to see numerous cold and snowfall records broken when we go into the next minimum on the solar cycle, especially. And I remember back in 2009 hearing similar comments, because there were a couple of 2-3 mild winters in the eastern U.S., that it was never going to snow again. I remember commenting that you're going to have so much snow in a couple of years, you're not going to know what to do with it all. And sure enough, 2009 to 10, the East Coast got buried with record amounts of snow. But I think it's going to be even worse next time around, because we're going to have free-falling ocean temperatures, we're going to have free-falling global temperatures, and they're going to get hit in the face, all these people promoting this global warming, because the sun rules our climate, man does not and never will. A decrease in solar activity is eventually going to lead to a decrease in global temperatures. Of course, nearly 75% of the globe is covered with ocean. There's a lag effect that could even be decades, especially with Arctic sea ice. There is a huge lag effect. Like, we had the record low in 2012, but that could be a lag effect from the high cycles of the sun we had back in the last couple decades of the 20th century. All that warm water from all that heat, solar insolation, reached the Arctic in the early 2000s and melted the ice. It wasn't warm air that did it, it was warm water flowing up there. Since 2012, the Arctic ice has leveled off. It has not declined. It's over 10 years now that there has not really been a further decline. Most of the media outlets do not talk about this. And one of the articles was talking 10 years that the ice is going to be gone. But the trend does not reflect that in the last few years. The North Pacific is going to, temperatures, if they're not even already, are going to crash water temperatures, because all this Siberian air is being siphoned out over the North Pacific. It's got to be cooling that ocean up there. And it is going to affect the weather patterns, especially over the Pacific Northwest, to a cooler regime. Northeastern Japan has been record cold. China has been record cold, because again, all of that cold air, we seem to always have a low off Kamchatka, which is feeding the Siberian air out into the North Pacific, where it gets modified. It doesn't affect anybody except for northeastern Japan and unpopulated regions, the Aleutians. By the time it even reaches the Aleutians, it's usually modified considerably. But there is plenty of cold air to be had in the hemisphere. It's plenty of snow in the hemisphere. Snow cover as a hemisphere is only slightly below average right now. So as little snow as there is in the U.S. right now, in North America, it's made up for in other parts of the world that must be getting way above average snow to balance it out, or else we'd be through the bottom in snow cover. Really, global warming was really causing this. We'd be dropping through the bottom, but we're not. We're just slightly below average, and probably the only reason we're below average right now is because North America virtually has no snow cover. Which means there's other areas that have a lot of snow to balance it out elsewhere where people do not live. So this is the beaver dam I'm walking on. And the beavers created this trail here, but I'm going to go this way so I don't have to walk over that log. there is a boggy area right here as well. And trail then goes up that embankment to my house. I'm going to end this video here. I will be back soon. Today is March 8th, 2024.